Hello and welcome to Don't Bury the Lead. We recap WWE Smackdown every Friday night after the bell. I'm joined by Dom Scarcella. Dom, go ahead and tell the people a little bit about yourself.
We've got a slightly new format this evening for reviewing WWE Smackdown. It's April 14th. We're going to do the lead right away, then pause the live stream and come back for the follow. So, with that explanation out of the way, hey, we can't bury it. John, don't bury the lead. What is our top story coming out of this SmackDown episode that we're going to talk about for the next 5 to 10 minutes here?
Dom, we don't ever want to bury the lead. The lead is the main event. Solo Sikoa goes over Matt Riddle in a pretty good match. Went about 20 minutes. So Solo Sikoa goes over Matt Riddle. Of course, it's kind of a schmoz. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there with interferences and the bloodline being involved and Kevin Owens and Sammy going kind of back and forth. But at the end of the day, Solo Sikoa over Matt Riddle. Dom, what did you think of this match?
I like that they tried to put the spotlight on Solo and Matt Riddle.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want, I mean, obviously, like you're saying, that there's got to be the tag teams involved at some point. And sure, they each got involved with each other early in the match. The ref throws both of them out. After commercial, though, eventually the Usos make their way through the crowd. They're back.
Yeah.
So Sammy and Kevin Owens come down the ramp. They're back, and there's another brawl going on. It winds up playing a little bit of a role in the finish. Matt Riddle looks like he's got control in the match, but he goes for a moonsault on the Usos on the outside instead of following up a move onto Solo Sikoa. He hits the moonsault, goes back up the ring to climb the top turnbuckle again. By that time, Solo's up. He's more alert. Riddle comes off the top rope. Solo catches him with a big kick, and then it's the Samoan spike and the pinfall. So that was the match, and giving them more spotlight. I like what they did for each of these guys throughout the program, though. They gave Matt Riddle some time backstage where Sammy and Keiko are trying to talk him up a bit, pep talk him, give him some advice. And, Sammy's doing the whole, oh, you got to be careful out there. Solo's dangerous. You got to be careful. And of course, KO comes out. No, don't worry about being dangerous. You just got to go out there and fight. Rah, rah, rah. So it's Sammy and Kevin's different personalities. And Riddle tries to split the difference and gives a pretty good showing of himself on the mic. The delivery could have been better, but the content seems to be there for where Riddle's personality is. And then a little later, we get a backstage with Paul Heyman, the Usos, and Solo Sikoa, and Paul Heyman's trying to give a pep talk to Solo. And I like this. Was this the first time we heard Solo Sikoa talk?
Yeah, I know.
Not just shouting during a match or post-match, but like deliberately getting some mic time. Solo Sikoa says, he stops Paul Heyman from going through the list of, all the family members who've been in pro wrestling who are behind him for this. And he just puts his hand on Paul Heyman and looks at him, and Heyman goes, I'm sorry, because that's, what Heyman does. Anytime anybody does anything, Heyman is like terrified and becomes apologetic. But Solo looks at him and says, tell the tribal chief, I got this. So we're getting personality out of Riddle and out of Solo. And even though they're part of a faction, they're trying to give these guys a little space for themselves individually. And I think that tells us that they do intend this bloodline angle and faction on faction angle to continue a bit, because they're not throwing it away. They're enhancing and building up two new guys, or these guys who are new to the spotlight. So what did you think about, as we near sort of the 5-minute mark here, what did you think about what went into building these two performers for this match, both in the ring and out of the ring?
they talked about it all night, and they had promos leading up to it, which is great. And I'm a big fan of the main event being a wrestling match, and
Yep.
that's definitely what we got. I have to say also just a couple notes I have here.
Mhm.
Riddle was good. He looked really good in the ring. He had some cool throws on Solo that I haven't really seen a whole ton of people just kind of doing some unique throws that kind of feel more in that MMA wheelhouse. But that
Okay.
is his background. He was in the UFC for 5 fights, so
Oh, I didn't
he's
know
got
that. Okay. I was going to ask you, do you know much about Matt Riddle? Because I don't.
I do. I know a couple things. So one being, he was in the MMA. He got kicked out because he failed drug test for marijuana. So he basically got booted out by Dana White. He was 5-0 in the
Ah.
MMA. He's a New York State high school wrestling champ. So
Oh,
he was
wow.
a state wrestling champ in high school, and he trained at the Monster Factory in South
All
Jersey.
right.
Yeah. So those are fun facts about Matt Riddle. And I thought the throws were cool. I thought even the start of the match, when they usually want to go slow, and they did, and he just put some sort of some sort of arm bar on
Mhm.
Solo, and Solo looked good because he actually sold it right
Yep.
away. So it was like, okay, he's doing the little things like selling that. Don't just do the spot and then we get right back into it. He's selling the arm a little bit.
Mhm.
So both guys impressed me, and then specifically Riddle, I haven't seen a ton of them, but I thought a lot of his move sets were good, and then Solo Sikoa really continues to evolve and look like the guy that
Mhm.
can really be their future. And I just want to go ahead and talk about something that you mentioned. We got to hear him talk tonight,
Yeah.
and they set it up really well. They didn't put him out, don't throw him out in front of the crowd necessarily. We
Yep.
don't need a 5-minute, 10-minute monologue
No.
that goes nowhere. They set it up where Heyman is doing all the talking, and it's like, shut up, pipsqueak, and the Usos are kind of joking around in the back, and they're being all goofy, and then suddenly Solo goes to talk, and they're like, oh, they tense up. So it was good supporting uh, performances by the Usos and Paul Heyman.
Speaking of the Usos, in the ring before this match, Paul Heyman announces in 2 weeks, the April 28th SmackDown, a rematch of WrestleMania 39, the Usos versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens for the combined tag titles there. Heyman drops the line at the end that Roman Reigns is losing patience with the two of you. And it seemed like he was talking about Jay and Jimmy,
Mm-hmm.
but they no sold it. So like I now I'm wondering, okay, what's going on here? Is that just for us, the viewing audience at home, to like start wondering about? Because this would be cool if there was a little more tension in the bloodline, and we haven't seen Roman Reigns since WrestleMania. There were rumors that Roman Reigns had some time off due to him, and maybe that's why people thought he was going to drop the belt at WrestleMania. Instead,
I was one
he
of those.
keeps the belt. He keeps the belts, but he still takes time off, and it's creating that space for Solo to have some stuff done, and for Paul Heyman to kind of put the idea in people's minds that maybe when Roman does come back, there may be some reckoning for at least the Uso brothers, and
Yeah.
we'll see what happens there. So another tease for that. So again, we got a pretty cool match in the ring. I'm glad that they gave the spotlight to these two guys who are usually just kind of buried down their factions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they performed well. We're getting to see more of their personalities. I like where it's going, and it looks like it's going somewhere.
Yeah. My only beef, and I think this is what I want. I want a main event match. I want a good match. My only beef is we are doing a lot of these run-in interference finishes.
Yep.
I think this is the third one in a row. We had the main event of WrestleMania was a run-in.
Mhm.
The main event last week, and I can't recall specifically. I think it was Sami Zayn versus Jey Uso. There's a
Yep.
run-in, and then Matt Riddle tonight. Riddle versus Solo. So I'd like to see a little bit more creativity than just call it a schmaz and we'll keep the storyline going.
Well, and what you just said there at the end, the main events here are, yes, they're trying to give you a match because guys like you and I want to see a match. But the match sometimes feels almost secondary. And like you're saying, maybe it's getting a little old. At some point, I want to see a match that matters for what it is in the ring that night, not because it's just filler to move ahead to something else at the next pay-per-view, 2 weeks from now, whatever. I mean, for the good things they did tonight, you're right. It could have been a little better.
Yep. So, anyways, that is the lead tonight. We will put the rest of the show in the description. So we will have the full SmackDown review in the description. Dom, thanks so much for joining quickly here. And we're going to hit the rest of the show. It will be found in that description. Thanks so much.